Welcome to the weigh-in reactions. I'm your boy Rocky Roach, and I'm here with Ashanti. How you doing, Ashanti?
Good, Steve. All the better for seeing you, man. Thanks for having me on.
There's no one better to give a reaction to an AJ Usyk announcement than yourself. Let's get into it, man. So big news this week. We had AJ's new fight get announced. It's sadly not the one that we all wanted, but maybe it's not the best fight out there. Personally, it's a good fight, but it's a brilliant event. What do you think to that?
Yeah, I'm just really happy that crowds are coming back. It's going to be a massive fight in London. That's a positive we can take. Obviously, Fury AJ was going to be in Saudi. So having a fight North London, not too far from where AJ's from, two undisputed champions. They're quite rare in boxing through kind of the recent history of boxing. So yeah, really looking forward to it. It should be a great fight. Both very talented guys. AJ fighting a southpaw as well, so should be interesting.
Okay, interesting. So, first, when I first heard the fight get announced, I think like a lot of people, AJ's too big for Usyk. Usyk's a cruiserweight. AJ's a super heavyweight. They fought at the same Olympics. It's an amazing story. The first time that a heavyweight and a super heavyweight gold medalist from the same Olympics are fighting for the heavyweight title. That's very exciting. But a good big un beats a good little un, as the saying goes. But I know that you're giving Usyk more of a chance than that. How does Usyk win this fight?
Being himself, going back to what made him an Olympic champion, going back to what made him a special boxer, having, Vasily Lomachenko in his corner, just outboxing AJ, using you see a lot of the really top elite fighters. A lot of people don't realize they just use their feet to put pressure on fighters. And of course, he'll be the smaller man, but just kind of his technique, his balance. He's got power as well. I'm not comparing him to the kind of heavyweight giants, but he's got power. He can hurt people. He hurt people down at cruiserweight. I think he can at heavy. And yeah, just being himself, using that southpaw jab, then using that backhand whenever AJ makes a mistake and falls in. So yeah, it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be a great event. Looking forward to seeing all of the 258 guys fighting on the undercard. Lawrence Okoli, probably Ram Morali, and a lot more to come.
Very true. We'll get into that in a second. So we're in AJ's career in the sort of modern history. We've seen Andy Ruiz, who comes in at 6'1" and it would be considered a smaller heavyweight. Obviously, give AJ his toughest professional fight and stop him. Do you see Usyk given a similar sort of game plan to that? Could you see Usyk doing something as shocking and amazing as that?
I mean, if you were to look, some of the slightly smaller heavyweights have given AJ some trouble. When you've seen guys like Dominic Breazeale, Charles Martin, he's run through them. But Dilian Whyte, decent fight. They have Dilian Whyte at about 6'4". I think Usyk 6'3", 6'4", so maybe a bit smaller. But yeah, it seems that some of those smaller guys who can get within range and really let bombs off are the ones that can give him trouble. So I can see Usyk giving it a really good go. I mean, I think you're right. AJ's just a bit too big, a bit too strong, a bit too powerful. But first 6 rounds, I think Usyk can really be a force in the fight and can probably be up on the cards, to be honest, after 6.
It's an interesting take. I think I agree with you. Povetkin, a smaller heavyweight, he took a few rounds and he landed some good shots in the third round against AJ. You've got Andy Ruiz, you've got Dilian Whyte. One thing I think that they all have in common is that they're all very brave and they're all they all have a similar sort of roll under style, as opposed to Usyk, who maybe that's a bit alien to him. And also, how's he going to respond if he does walk into a right hand from AJ? It's a very different ball game to even someone like Chisora. And Usyk's, we have to talk about his sort of resume in the heavyweight division. Against Chisora, did he set the world alight? Did he do enough to make us all believe that he could beat someone of the caliber of AJ? Considering that, like Chisora, Parker, they're all kind of in and around the same level. Does that not sway your sort of beliefs about Usyk?
I think that's actually a really great point. You're right. A lot of the smaller guys are very brave, wing shots over the top. Usyk's not going to do that. He's going to box, throw backhand, slip, slide. It's not going to be... Another person I was going to mention is Takam. Takam kind of, throws those big looping right hands over the top, whereas Usyk's, a slick boxer. So that's why I think, AJ's going to win the fight, but I do back Usyk early. And I think the point you made about getting hit on the chin, he's Ukrainian. He's a fantastic amateur. I'd imagine he's been hit on the chin by some pretty big guys. Like I don't think that's initially going to deter him, but I think he'll be worn down by the power over time and just the size. Being kind of in clinches with a guy that big just tires you out. It saps your energy, and that there's some major advantages that AJ's got.
No, I agree. And obviously, both had incredible amateur careers. Usyk, obviously, one of the best amateurs potentially of all time in terms of maybe not in the actual Olympics, but his record, his body of work was very, very impressive. And in that time, he did fight our very own Joe Joyce, who's fighting this week. They fought in the WSB, WCBS, the World Series of Boxing. Yeah. And he beat Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce, lo and behold, very similar dimensions to an Anthony Joshua. So he has shown that he can use those skills against a very top and big and strong heavyweight. Is Joe Joyce at that time comparable to the AJ that we have now, who is an elite big heavyweight? I'm not sure. You obviously think there is enough in this fight to make us think that this is a worthy fight. This is a fight worth making. One thing I wanted to ask you about: where does this leave Tyson Fury? How does Tyson Fury look in the perception of this getting announced and his fight getting cancelled? Where does this leave Tyson Fury?
I think it's a really tough one mentally for him because this is a big fight, not on the Eddie Hearn hype bandwagon, but it's a big fight. 2 Olympic gold medalists, undisputed cruiserweight champion, former won the WBSS, World Boxing Super Series. So he was on the pound for pound list, I think, Usyk, before his move up to heavyweight. And Tyson, now he's got, COVID and now postponed fight. Will the next one go ahead? I think it's a really tough time for him. But equally, I do think it's not a bad thing because this is a mandatory fight. So if you're Tyson, you're thinking, great, it's another mandatory fight that he's got to get rid of, which might allow us to fight twice next year. That's how I would see it if I were part of his team or if I were him, which is obviously, hard to get into his head. But it's really difficult because AJ's, he's fighting on his own, massive fight in front of the world. And, they're going to pack out 60,000 fans in London whilst Fury's going to be twiddling his thumbs in training camp, hoping for a fight with Wilder.
I know you're like me, we've had you on the pod, and you're obviously Team Fury, maybe not in AJ. I think you're definitely a Fury fan. How much smoke does Fury deserve to get? And I've heard the word fraud bandied around. I've heard I've heard a lot of criticism, which, as a big Fury fan, I'm finding it harder and harder to argue against. How are you feeling about the big man at this point and his career and sort of who he is as a champion?
Still think he's a fantastic champion. The person I kind of laid a lot of the blame at the feet of for the fight with AJ not happening was Bob Arum. I do think Bob Arum did play Eddie Hearn and AJ. I think he kind of always knew that the arbitration was likely to go through. We've all got to remember Bob Arum is a trained lawyer. That's how he started his career. He's a lawyer. I know he's a boxing promoter, but that's his kind of, he's got a law degree and all of that kind of stuff. The one thing I'm really struggling with is I think he's got COVID, but I do find it really disappointing that he's taking pictures with fans. And if the pictures are true of him out and about in malls, as they call them in America, or kind of out, not in training camp, not in kind of isolation in his house with people that aren't part of his bubble or camp, it does make me a bit disappointed because it's one of two ways. You're either lying about COVID, which I don't believe, or secondly, you're kind of breaking COVID rules. And I know it's really nice to take pictures of the fans. I'm not trying to say that that's a negative, but you do have to kind of hold yourself to a higher standard because a lot of people in the UK and in America who is his fans will be like, oh, well, Tyson's got it and he looks fine. He doesn't have anything wrong with him. He's just having a good time. So I do find it really disappointing as a fan of him as a boxer and as a fan of the person he's become since, some of his mental health struggles in recent years.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And then also you look down the division and he's completely screwed up the whole division for everyone else. So Joe Joyce is now on a waiting list. Dilian Whyte is on a waiting list. And those are just the English heavyweights. There's a whole host of other heavyweights around the world, Hergovich, etc., who, they're waiting on their shot. And he's just kind of arrogantly I personally felt that he left himself very, very vulnerable when he walked away from the Anthony Joshua fight to go and fight Deontay Wilder. There's a million reasons why. There's a million reasons why not that fight should happen. But when you then have your fight cancelled due to injury or COVID or something like that, you leave yourself open to so much criticism. And I personally think rightly so. I don't know what's going on with the guy. Big John Fury gave an interview recently where he's sort of saying, I'm washing my hands of the guy's career. I'm saying, like, I can't get through to him. I'm taking a back seat. As long as he's healthy, I don't care anymore. Which when your dad's saying that,
I haven't seen that interview. I think it was on Boxing Social. I haven't watched it. That's big news to me. Then yeah, that's kind of crazy. But in terms of the point you made about the heavyweight division, that's something that's really disappointing, because I'm not here to pile on to Dilian Whyte, but I heard that his next fight in America might be with Chris Arreola. I'm not being horrible. Like, Dilian Whyte is a fighter. He's a Jamaican warrior. He will fight anyone. Yeah. But I know it's his American debut or whatever you might call it. I don't want to see Dilian fight. I think Chris Arreola is like 39 or 41. Like, he was past it before I had grey hair 5 years ago. Like, I really
you know, I can't see any greys on this camera.
I tried my best.
Few more pictures on the camera might show us.
I'm gonna wear a hat next time, but you know, I do not want to see that. And if that's his entry to the American market, it just shows you Dilian wants to fight AJ. And then I love Joe Joyce. He's from my neck of the woods. I've followed his career for a long time. He's about to become mandatory. Is it with the IBF? Will he be?
WBO. He's a Frank Warren fighter. WBO all day.
But he's not going to be fighting for that world title until maybe 2023, because, as you say, there is a long list, and that if they do get the Fury fight, they're going to get exemption. So that's 2022 done, and then there might be one more mandatory, and then Joe's the next one on the bandwagon. And Joe's 35, I think, now, and I feel really sorry for the guys who are top 5, top 10, whose careers are just being kind of really stymied and slowed down by COVID, negotiations, arbitrations, things that boxing shouldn't be about. Boxing should be about, I want to fight you. Who's got the money to put it up? I don't care where it is. Let's have a fight. Not, oh, well, I've got an arbitration and a legal contract that means that the biggest fight in boxing can't ever happen. So really disappointing, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, 100%. So we'll leave it there. All I want to get is one final prediction for the big fight. Usyk, Anthony Joshua, you are no stranger to controversy. Who are you going for?
Well, it's AJ's last fight officially with Sky on Sky Box Office, so I'm going to go with a controversial hometown decision. I think Usyk might, quote unquote, win more rounds, but there's no way that AJ's not going to win in his adopted hometown, because obviously he's from Watford.
I just think at this point, AJ, for me, is an elite fighter. And against Pullout, he showed he was just a fighter in his prime. He's coming to his prime. He showed a lot of confidence in that fight. The way he just dissected a good fighter. He was supposed to win that fight. The way he went about it, I thought that was a fighter coming into his prime. I think you're going to see more of that. I think Anthony Joshua is going to do a professional job, not take any risks. But when the time is right, he'll show his experience and his professionalism and his talent, and just take Usyk out of there. I think maybe round 6 to 9. I think the fight will be done. But for me, I know it sounds like, oh, if it's that simple, why buy it? I love the spectacle. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think the undercard's going to be wicked with all the 258 fighters, and definitely tune into that live on Sky Sports Box Office. There we go. What a fight. We'll end it there. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, boys. You know what to do. Okay, check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Twitter. We are growing. We love the conversation as well, so make sure you are commenting. Who do you think was going to win this fight? Joshua, Usyk? Is this a good fight? Do you like this fight? Would you rather see a different fight? Tell us who you want to see AJ fight. And definitely, if you think Usyk has the minerals to upset Joshua, we want to hear from you, because those are the people we want to hear on, because I think there's not many of you. So show yourselves, boys. Right. Ashanti, thanks so much for coming on, man. Means a lot. Peace.